Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To me, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most influential African Americans we have in our society. He was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, and died April 4, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee due to assassination. Dr. King was a minister and a social activist in the civil rights movement. His efforts during the movement will have very influentially benefited our society today and made the African American community what they are today. His movement ended legal segregation for African Americans in all southern parts of the United States of America. Through Dr. King's actions, he later became the leader of the SCLC, which is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They promoted nonviolent actions to get social equality for all African Americans during this time of segregation. One of Dr. King's most famous nonviolent actions was the March on Washington. The march took place in Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963. This was 5 years prior to Dr. King's assassination. More than 200,000 people gathered under the Lincoln Memorial in order to gain social equality. A year later, 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King was awarded his Nobel Peace Prize due to his outstanding achievements in education and dedication to serving his African American community. This is the introduction life of Martin Luther King, everything that he's been through, everything that he accomplished. His early years of Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King had a good, decent childhood, being raised in a middle-class family. They attempted to keep him from being notified of all the racism, all the criticism, everything that was going against black people at that time. But they could never keep that away from him. They could never keep that a secret from Dr. Martin Luther King. Both his father and his grandfather were preachers or ministers, and his parents were both college educated. And that was one thing that pushed Dr. Martin Luther King to get his education as a black person. Though King had secure upbringings, this didn't prevent him from experiencing what was really going on in the world at this time. King lost all his white friends due to racism, against segregated schools, to other children's parents' racism. When King was about 12 years old, he tried to attempt suicide due to the hurt and pain of his grandmother's death in 1941. In 1944, at age 15, King entered Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, under a special wartime program intended to boost enrollment by admitting promising high school students like King. As Dr. King spent a summer in Connecticut on a tobacco farm, he was shocked to see how peaceful mixed races could be in the North. When Dr. King went to the North, he was on a tobacco farm, and he seen how mixed races could be, as in churches, public buildings, any public recreational areas. He saw how mixed they were, and how good black and white people got along, not together, but separated, but in the same buildings, in the same areas. As in the South, there were separate buildings, totally. A separate church for both black and whites, a separate public building for black and whites. But in the North, they were different. A couple years down the road, King was locked up in jail in Birmingham, Alabama, and he wrote the letter from Birmingham jail. King quoted in a letter to his parents, "I never thought that a person of my race could eat anywhere." Because in the southern parts of the United States, African Americans weren't allowed to eat everywhere. They weren't allowed to do everything that a white person could do. King realized how different things were in the North and South. This grew King's hatred for the segregation in this time. In Birmingham, Alabama, in the spring of 1963, King's campaign ended segregation on lunch counters and in hiring practices due to nationwide attention when people turned police dogs and fire hoses on demonstrators. King was jailed along with large numbers of supporters, including hundreds of school children. Supporters did not, however, include all the black clergy. Clergy is the body of all people ordained in the religion duties. So basically all the higher positions in church of Birmingham. And he was strongly opposed by some white clergy who had issued a statement urging African Americans to not support demonstrations. And as being a part of Dr. Martin Luther King's association, it wasn't just middle-aged people. They had older people, they had younger children, they had parents with their young children, babies. Everybody wanted to support Martin Luther King's movement to win social equality. Under the Lincoln Memorial on August 28, 1963, is where history was made. History was made here this day because of Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech. This I Have a Dream speech touched millions of people across the United States once it got out. Everyone who was there at the Lincoln Memorial. You may have some great grandparents who were there those days. Martin Luther King gave his world-renowned I Have a Dream speech in which emphasized his faith that all men would someday be brothers. And that was Martin Luther King's total goal throughout his whole movement, all the way up until the letter from Birmingham jail, all the way until the end of his I Have a Dream speech. That was his main goal, to make sure that all people could get along as if we were all our own brothers and sisters, black or white. It didn't matter to Martin Luther King. Segregation was his #1 hatred in this world. And we all should help be more like Martin Luther King. Thank you.